In the world of obscuration, observe the changes of life and death, comprehend the changes of nature, and open up an invincible path of evolution. In the world of Yang God, one can comprehend the principles and cultivate the path of sages. Everyone can transform sages, without any other side, and be at ease forever. In the world of supreme humanity, analyze countless great paths, integrate and connect, create the innate human race, and reverse the cycle of great paths. In an infinite world, only the seasons are free and eternal. Keywords of the novel. Reincarnation Heaven Disc. Living in infinite dimension with no pop-ups, Reincarnation Heaven Disc. Living in infinite dimension with no pop-ups, download the complete TXT collection, Reincarnation Heaven Disc. Living in infinite dimension with no pop-ups, read the latest chapters. Chapter 1. Reincarnation Disc. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1 Reincarnation Disc. Ji Tian slowly climbed to the Yuhuang peak of Mount Taishan, and his heart felt a strange touch. This place is a place of ancient emperors offering sacrifices, witnessing countless histories. Looking around, there is a special sense of emotion. Suddenly, Ji Tian thought of something and sighed, realizing that there was a thick barrier between him and this world. I am not a person from this world and can be called a traveler, but this world is also Earth and there is no real difference. Consider yourself living in parallel time and space. Speaking of time travel, there's nothing special about it. It's just lying in bed and sleeping, and when you wake up, you realize that you were born directly on Earth in another world. Ji Tian closed his eyes and felt the rhythm between heaven and earth. There was a strange particle jumping between heaven and earth, telling the story of ancient times. The mind rapidly emanates, as if it directly penetrates through the past and all things. In Ji Tian's mind, a strange wheel slowly rotated, with many views on it. There is a supreme realm of heaven and humanity, and countless heaven and humanity are constantly singing and reciting the principles of heaven and earth. There is a 9 heavenly realm, where immortals roam freely. There are countless Saha worlds, where endless strange creatures and countless humans are active. There is an endless hell, with countless yaks and demons constantly tearing at the shells of living beings, wielding knives, guns, forks, and halberds. Teeth roll out like sharp swords, and eyes stare, swaying like lightning. There are great demons who overturn heaven and earth, supreme gods and humans who evolve the universe, and sages who educate the common people. The wheel rotates endlessly, as if there is no resting moment, from the moment when nothing appears to the moment when everything is silent. The image above is also constantly changing. But when Ji Tian wants to watch carefully, he will only feel dizzy and make people fall asleep directly. This plate is directly named the Reincarnation Plate by Ji Tian, although in Ji Tian's mind, he does not have the ability to understand what the Reincarnation Plate is. However, the cycle of reincarnation brought great help to Ji Tian. Firstly, as he grew older, his thinking ability became increasingly powerful, and he could easily capture the patterns contained in the changes of everything. The learning ability has become extremely strong, and many ancient and modern classics have been easily captured by Ji Tian to contain the rules, and then easily understood and summarized by Ji Tian. Whether it's Taoist scriptures, Buddhist scriptures, mathematics, physics, these vast amounts of knowledge were easily understood by Ji Tian, making him a successful person in this world. The reincarnation disc also gifted Ji Tian with another ability, which is Wangqi. That's right, it's Wangqi. The essence of Wangqi is to observe the movement of various energies between heaven and earth, and use qi to manifest in the eyes of Jitian. During this process, Ji Tian discovered a strange energy between heaven and earth. This energy is the fundamental unit for building an adult soul. From birth, the soul is constantly dissipating and transforming into particles between heaven and earth. Particles contain many aspects of human history, including wisdom, emotions, principles, insights, and more. Ji Tian is able to rely on the characteristics of the reincarnation disc, observe the properties of soul particles, integrate countless martial arts and meditation techniques, and continuously absorb soul particles. Moreover, Ji Tian found that during the process of observing the cycle of reincarnation, the efficiency of absorbing soul particles will be greatly improved. The absorption of soul particles is of great use. Firstly, it can supplement Ji Tian's spirituality, making his soul stronger and stronger. His thinking comprehension can also be snatched from the soul particles, and his thinking comprehension is constantly improving. Perhaps I can carve out a path of eternal cultivation in this world. Ji Tian thought contentedly. Ji Tian walked over to the railing and sat quietly with his eyes closed, a large amount of knowledge emerging in his mind, constantly organizing and grasping. Suddenly, there was a gentle shake in the reincarnation disc, and Ji Tian's thinking was rapidly rising. What's going on? The reincarnation disc slowly rotated, but Ji Tian seemed to have transformed into a person, tightly locked by the reincarnation disc, constantly approaching it. In the end, Ji Tian fell into the cycle of reincarnation, and countless pieces of information flooded into his brain. However, these pieces of information were forgotten by Ji Tian's brain. But all kinds of insights are like turning into seeds and entering Ji Tian's heart. In short, Ji Tian's current state is, I understand that I understand a lot, but I don't understand what I understand. After passing through countless cycles, suddenly, Ji Tian realized that he had come into an endless void, dotted with stars. I feel like a star that falls down. Oh, I didn't expect my golden finger to be like this. This is not the voice that Ji Tian said, but the voice is very familiar. Turning his head, Ji Tian suddenly realized that a person was looking at him, and behind him was a huge and incomparable cycle of reincarnation. The huge reincarnation disc seems to fill the entire universe, and the river systems are like decorative embellishments. Manifesting countless divine radiance, immortal saint radiance, heavenly radiance, great road radiance, demon god radiance, there are countless great hells with blood light, demonic energy, ghost crying and wolf howling. Various phenomena are emerging, but all of them are under the control of a huge cycle, which is behind that person, like a support, with the majesty from the great road. So my journey is like crossing the same river. Ji Tian sighed. Another person walked in, and their face became clear, just like Ji Tian's. That seasoned Tian was dressed in a long robe, with a refined temperament. I have been in this world of great twists and turns for several years, thinking it was a place for me to understand the truth, but I didn't expect it to be like this. As he spoke, the Confucian scholar Ji Tian approached him and placed his hand on Ji Tian's shoulder. Suddenly, the memories of both sides blended in an instant. 99 Shenzhou, Zhuzi, Daqian, Hong Xuanji, the two no longer have physical contact and digest each other's information. Good guy, I didn't expect you to cross into the world of the young god. Why don't you practice the Taoist scriptures? Ji Tian looked at Ji Tian, who had crossed into the world of the young god, and asked. Although their memories blend together, they cannot fully digest them in an instant, especially the emotions and touches they experience, which cannot be savored in detail. I am preparing to follow the path of the medieval philosophers, only cultivating wisdom, comprehending principles, and seeking purity. And I am also familiar with the Taoist scriptures, constantly verifying and cultivating my soul through the teachings of the scriptures. My current divine soul is very powerful, and I have a feeling that as long as I use the Taoist technique, I can immediately become a ghost immortal who takes away the ghost. In my past life, I have read some classics left by sages, but I haven't finished reading a large number of classics such as the Book of Changes and the Tao Te Ching. Even if there is a reincarnation disc to strengthen my memory, it is still incomplete. I didn't expect you to send me this knowledge, and I think I can walk the path of sages more smoothly. Yangshan Ji Tian said happily. Yangshan Jitian is really excited this time, and although he has gained considerable wisdom and insight through the use of the reincarnation disc. But it is still only limited by the wisdom of the sons of the vast world. This time, it is not only the teachings left by the sages to verify, but also the Taoist scriptures of Taoism, the Tripitaka of Buddhism, and the accumulation of Confucian orthodoxy. A large amount of knowledge is summarized, and these knowledge, combined with the great will reflection, can reflect the infinite world's atmosphere to comprehend the teachings. When will I integrate these knowledge, use my own teachings to consistently apply them, and at that time, I will be the true sages. In addition, there is also the subject of mathematics, which can be considered as the essence of Earth's technological civilization and the soul of technology. There is no simpler and more intuitive truth than mathematics, and even with mathematics, it is much easier to calculate the body's acupoints. Not bad. Ji Tian also nodded. Although he was able to contact soul particles with the help of the reincarnation disc and also wanted to study the path of extraordinary immortality, if he had a sage as his cheating brain, he could more easily open up the path of extraordinary life. I didn't expect us to have such a great opportunity. We still need to study and understand the truth, especially in the world of the young God that you have traveled through. The truth is the power that is real and not illusory. Ji Tian sighed. Yangshan Ji Tian constantly pays attention to his body and mind, relying on the principles of the Taoist scriptures to verify that his divine soul has already reached a state of specialized qi to softness, like being able to cry out like a baby. Based on various verifications, he can break through the barrier of life and death and transform into a ghost immortal at any time, without any preconceived realm requirements. The world of young God is already like this, and ancient scholars have already set an example. But you still need to practice martial arts. I happen to be really curious about the immortal martial arts way, Ji Tian said. I also want to practice. Yangshan Ji Tian shook his head. He was just a minor branch of the aristocratic family, and having enough study environment would be good. It was still very difficult to obtain true human immortal martial arts or Taoist techniques. And I have been searching for the opportunity of the past Maitreya Sutra, but I do not insist. Although Ji Tian only needs to observe the cycle of reincarnation every day, the truth contained in the cycle of reincarnation is definitely not inferior to that of the Maitreya statue in the past Maitreya Sutra, and may even be stronger. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Wuyi. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Wuyi. Ji Tian's consciousness returned to his own body, looking at everything around him with an antique charm. Ji Tian recalled the knowledge that had emerged in his mind. At this moment, all the experts seemed to have sensed something. They used their Taoist knowledge to calculate where they were sensing, but suddenly realized that they had not calculated anything. Tai Shangdao, a person with no human emotions on his face, like a celestial manifestation, woke up from his meditation, his eyes like clear water, but without any human emotions. But there were no pores around the body, and the light shone back like a fairy. He is the dream divine machine of the Supreme Master. The dream god had doubts and immediately used the Taoist technique, Tai Shang He Tian, to make calculations, but still found nothing. Is it a variable? Meng Xinji frowned slightly. He hated variables, and even more so, he hated variables that could trigger his own thoughts. Rubbing the king of the eternal kingdom, pondering on something. Thinking of the current brother in La Hong Xuanji and the current emperor Yang Pan, as well as the suggestion to eliminate the orthodoxy of the great Zen temple. Although Meng Xinji knew that these two people had ulterior motives, he still agreed. The principle of the Supreme Tao is to govern the world through the heavenly way. To achieve the Yang God, one must suppress the world and practice the Supreme Tao. The great Zen temple is too big, and there are even rumors of running horses and offering incense. If you want to suppress the world, you must eliminate the great Zen temple. The dream divine machine pressed down on the doubts about variables in its heart, and began to close its eyes to nourish its mind, continuing to comprehend and practice the Tai Shang Dan Jing. Only by being strong can one practice one's own principles. Ji Tian sighed and began to sit quietly, absorbing his own information from another world. How could Ji Tian not be interested in this extraordinary world when he knew he was in it? At first, he learned knowledge and principles for the sake of extraordinary strength, but later on, Ji Tian discovered that there was nothing happier than improving wisdom, and nothing safer than practicing principles. Gradually, Ji Tian began to practice the wisdom from various schools of thought. But it was only after Ji Tian that he realized that the teachings of the 100 schools of thought were not true principles, but only superficial manifestations of principles. Therefore, in ancient times, various schools of thought fought and argued against each other, and even fought and killed each other. The medieval philosophers were stepping stones to help ordinary people practice the path of sages, but they also reached high places and became cages for pursuing the true wisdom of sages. Without breaking the wisdom of the disciples and proving the ability of all phenomena, one cannot comprehend wisdom and achieve sages. But how powerful is the wisdom of the disciples, which is something that ordinary people can comprehend and break through their own path. This reminds Ji Tian of Wang Yangming, the great master of Confucianism in his past life, who proposed the principles of unity of knowledge and action, to cultivate conscience, not to lose and not to forget, and so on. So Ji Tian was constantly vigilant and practiced various truths. Sitting quietly, the wisdom of sages from another world dimension flowed in Ji Tian's heart, and countless pieces of knowledge were rapidly confirming it. The Analects, the Great Learning, the Doctrine of the Mean, Spring and Autumn Annals, records of transmission and learning the Tao Te Ching, the Supreme Emperor's Induction Chapter, Zhuangzi, Huainanzi the Mahayana Sutra, Vajra Sutra, Yogacara Sutra, Shurangama Sutra. Countless scriptures quickly rolled in Ji Tian's mind, and these scripture principles that were different or even completely different from this vast world suddenly appeared in Ji Tian's heart. Because there was another season to help him understand the truth, he digested it very quickly. Thinking jumps rapidly, and a large amount of information is being processed rapidly. Poetry, books, rituals, and countless other forms of knowledge are methods and manifestations of practicing truth, not true truth. Taoism has tranquility, Buddhism has meditation, and Confucianism also advocates for meditation. These are also manifestations of truth and a method. Observing everything as constant is appearance, observing everything as impermanent is also reversal. So, apart from all the phenomena, it is the reality of the phenomena, the reality is only one mind. Starting from Chuanxi Lu, constantly verifying the knowledge of various scholars that I have learned in the vast world. All wise sages are distinguished by the law of non-action. All things in the world are born of existence, and existence is born of nothingness. Confucius said, I am ignorant. A large number of classics constantly emerge in thinking, and the Taoist techniques in the Taoist scriptures have been dismantled, restored to the original principles, and transformed into one mind. So everything has its way, like dreams and bubbles. The saying, seeing all things that are different from each other is the Tathagata. Not only did Shakyamuni say it, but even the holy Emperor Yuan of this world, the Tathagata Taoist who founded Buddhism and Taoism, once said similar words. Is it the reason why there is neither physical nor non-physical? Is all attachment a selfish desire, only to achieve good understanding of the essence? Conscience, in terms of its wonderful use, is called divine. In terms of its popularity, it is called qi. In terms of its cohesion, it is called essence. Nature is conscience, conscience is the great way, and the great way is the Tathagata. Therefore, all scholars' knowledge is essentially the manifestation of nature. Upon reflection, Ji Tian's mind was deeply immersed in the ocean of wisdom of the sages. These classics were like a mirror, constantly reflecting on Ji Tian himself, and his thinking ability began to recall everything from the past. A large amount of wisdom is like a flame, burning away the ignorance and darkness of Ji Tian. The soul gradually becomes like the most precious pearl, reflecting infinite weather. And the infinite weather shines on the pearl of the soul, and Ji Tian's thinking is also observing the changes in his body and materials. There is no difference between heart and object, and no difference between law and illegality. Ji Tian understood this truth, but it was still very difficult to prove it. In the future, Ez will be the son of the era, pioneering the Yi Dao, but the truth will not change, and the truth will not change. Quickly, Ji Tian began to refer to another world, the Book of Changes, and there were many Yi Dao classics, combined with a lot of knowledge, to divide the Book of Changes into 3 parts. Change, simplicity, and difficulty. The so-called change refers to the changes in the world that people cannot control, so it is called change. The so-called simplicity is a set of methodologies that rely on mathematics or knowledge to simplify the complex and ever-changing laws of the world into theorems, making it a set of methodologies. And all pursuit is truly not easy, everything is for the true truth, the truth of the Tathagata. Because truth is simply not easy. Those who say easy have nothing to say, it's called easy. Ji Tian suddenly opened his eyes slowly and couldn't help but naturally say this sentence. At this moment, in the place of origin, the golden bridge on the other side, which was suppressed by Emperor Chongqing, suddenly trembled as if about to fly away. The Chongqing Emperor smiled and said, "Your bet with me has not been completed yet. How could you leave so soon?" The dual power of the Chongqing Emperor's operation of the Yang God and the crushing vacuum suppresses the synthesis of the power and wisdom of these sons. And silently applying the head technique, rapidly calculating and deducing. Quickly, the Chongqing Emperor only received a small amount of fragmented information, which was a new information that had never appeared in the world and was a variable in the entire era of humanity. Interestingly, the fixed number of the era of humanity is E. It is EZ. I didn't expect variables to be non-E, how did I know such a ridiculous thing would happen? I have seen the future chess game, including the sun of origin, the sun of the center, the sun of the great thousand, the sun of the era, and an interesting variable called Wuyi. It's interesting, everything is so interesting. This is Emperor Chongqing watching the golden bridge on the other side constantly flickering with spiritual light, interpreting the information inside. What, you said that variables may destroy the hope of transcending the era. When did you start representing the era? If I, the Taoist of creation, the son of the era and variables collide with each other, wouldn't it be more likely to transcend the era? Is the son of the era, who cannot even overcome variables, really a hope of transcendence? That's just pseudo-transcendence. The golden bridge on the other side slowly settled down and continued to engage in a prolonged confrontation with the Chongqing Emperor. Ji Tian's soul sank into the darkness, he forgot everything and was in a state of sitting and forgetting. But countless flames of wisdom are raging, burning away all the foolishness of Ji Tian. Wisdom is like a sharp sword, cutting off all the troubles and knots. Ji Tian slowly opened his eyes at the Jade Emperor's summit of Mount Taishan Mountain. His wisdom of the two worlds was blended, and he could feel that his thinking ability had doubled directly. His wisdom and perception were also improving in the rapid collision. My physical fitness has not improved, it seems that the space for reincarnation can only increase soul strength and exchange ideas. At this time, a group of people seemed to be building a group and climbing Mount Taishan bit by bit. Ji Tianminrui's perception moved, and his eyes soon locked on a person. That person is very good. It is said to be the boss of a company, with a talent for financial business. It is said that he broke into a big family business in just 3 years after graduation. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Unity and Clear Heart. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3 Unity and Clear Heart. Ji Tian's thinking became rapidly active, and when he saw the person coming, he also began to approach them. Yi Fan. Ji Tian approached and said, "How did you also come to this place?" This person named Yi Fan can be said to be Ji Tian's senior, and both have mutual communication and discussion of economic knowledge in the financial field. In addition, the two of them also have a common hobby, which is their love for classical culture. Due to Ji Tian's expertise in ancient culture, he has a deep understanding of various cultural knowledge from ancient and modern times, both at home and abroad. This partner, Yi Fan, can also be considered a friend, exchanging various insights into ancient culture with each other. Although Ji Tian always secretly complains that the name Yi Fan is too like the name of the protagonist in the novel. Thinking of this, Ji Tian suddenly thought of himself, who had traveled to the world of Yang God, and was about to ponder it carefully. "Brother, have you also come to Mount Taishan?" Yi Fan said. "Yes, I still like to travel around many famous mountains and places of interest." Ji Tian also smiled and asked, "Why did Brother Yi come to Mount Taishan?" "Oh, I came here with my classmates, and today we will get together." Yi Fan smiled, and then seemed to sigh. Mount Taishan has been an extremely mysterious symbol in the ancient Central Plains since ancient times. Climb Mount Taishan and live in a small world. Ji Tian nodded and said. The 3 emperors and 5 emperors, as well as the Qin Emperor and Han Wudu, have come here to worship the heaven. The emperor is the one who combines virtue with heaven and earth, and is the link of all things in the world, sighed Ji Tian, as his soul couldn't help but understand the mentality of the Holy Emperor from the world of Yang God. The Yang Holy Emperors also once led the people and understood the truth. Especially after the abdication of the Holy Emperor Yuan, Buddhism and Taoism were passed down. The Buddhism and Taoism in the world of Yang God are not only like those on earth, but also contain knowledge of governing the world. Yang Shen Ji Tian also constantly learns these knowledge and realizes his own principles. As for why Yang Shen Ji Tian does not directly practice Taoism, it is because Ji Tian discovered that the best time to practice is actually when mortals are practicing Taoism. After practicing Taoism, spirit and flesh are separated, and although mortals cannot be considered as the unity of spirit and flesh, they are also closely related to each other. Taoism can strengthen the thoughts of gods and souls, make people's thoughts more complex, become smarter, and greatly improve their thinking speed. Correspondingly, their knowledge and vision barriers will also increase. But wisdom does not improve, because knowing wisdom is knowing, not knowing is not knowing. True wisdom has nothing to do with Taoism or martial arts. In a mortal state, it is easy to shape the cultivation and comprehension of wisdom, with weak knowledge and obstacles. This is the best state for cultivation and comprehension of wisdom. With the help of the cycle of reincarnation for Ji Tian's divine soul and understanding, Ji Tian can now be considered a wise person. Although he has not practiced Taoism, the essence of Taoism is to seize the level of ghosts and immortals. I don't know how many cultivators of Taoism envy him. In the heart of Yang Shen Ji Tian, he constantly plays the roles of ancient emperors and medieval sages, reading their history and understanding the principles they speak. Think from their perspective and think about what they are thinking. Continuously digesting these truths with his true heart, gradually, Ji Tian also developed a pure temperament. On earth, Ji Tian was also like this. With the help of the reincarnation disc and his tireless efforts, he finally reconciled with the principles of the Yang God world, as if a strange reaction had occurred. Ji Tian's thoughts seem to blend with the changes in heaven and earth, but his heart is agile, as if he can divert the direction of the rivers running through heaven and earth, as if he is the ruler of a world, a towering man. Yi Fan felt this temperament and couldn't help but feel a sense of respect for Ji Tian from the bottom of his heart, but there was no rejection. It was as if he had met his own father, and instinctively wanted to bow to Ji Tian, as if it was meant to be. Suddenly, Yi Fan was also infected. He felt a strange sense of war. When he climbed Mount Taishan, he saw that all the mountains were small and the world was small. A surge of lofty aspirations emerged. Heroes and figures have always been, even if you count them, still look at the present day. Quickly, Yi Fan realized and felt the temperament of Ji Tian. He couldn't help but think of the realm that ancient people called inner sage and outer king. With inner wisdom and outer royal attire, Yi Fan couldn't help but think, is it true that my friend is really pursuing the teachings of ancient sages? If there really is a master who practices the teachings of sages in modern society, it would be quite interesting. At this time, Ji Tian is pondering, Mount Taishan Yu Huangding, Yi Fan, classmate gathering, why do you feel so familiar? Ji Tian felt a little confused, and at this moment, a huge roar came from his ear. I felt a sense in my heart, but when I saw the sky, I saw a black spot rapidly expanding. Ji Tian reacted and his heart skipped a beat, whispering slightly. Mom! I won't go back for dinner tonight. Ji Tian was born in this world, of course, with his own parents, and the deep affection between them. He immediately took out his phone and sent this message. So it's not easy for me to travel here. Cover the sky. Ji Tian sighed. Yi Fan couldn't understand what Ji Tian meant by covering the sky and couldn't help but look at the sky. But there were 9 quaint dragons pulling a bronze coffin. The speed is extremely fast, just now it seemed like a black dot, and now it is extremely close. No wonder I want to climb Mount Taishan on a whim today, but I haven't said goodbye to my parents yet. Ji Tian sighed. However, there was a great change on Mount Taishan Mountain. Jiulong pulled the coffin to the top of Mount Taishan Mountain in an instant, and saw the bronze coffin fall. For a moment, the whole Mount Taishan Mountain shook, countless stones shook and rolled down, and countless people were injured. Everyone around is panicked. Only Ji Tian's face remained unchanged, still standing steadily amidst the shaking of the earth and mountains. Suddenly, a strange and unstoppable attraction came, and Ji Tian couldn't resist, being drawn into darkness and the unknown. Ascending the heavenly road, treading on songs, playing fingers to cover the sky. Ji Tian spoke generously, although his voice was obscured by the noise around him, it was firm and powerful. A new journey has begun. Yangshan Ji Tian woke up from his forgetfulness, opened his eyes, and everything around him was so clear as if he had lived in the clouds in the past, but now the clouds are gradually dispelled by the raging fire of wisdom. At this moment, countless knowledge and principles were rolling in Ji Tian's heart, constantly recalling everything from the past, constantly reflecting, and all confusion was rapidly being dispelled. The raging flame of wisdom kept burning, and the collision of 2 worlds ultimately broke Ji Tian's bottleneck. Ji Tian's mind is incredibly transparent now, as if it reflects the atmosphere of the vast world, as if the principles of the entire world's operation are all within Ji Tian's mind. But at this moment it was still vague and incomprehensible. Ji Tian was still unable to manifest the truth, and his mind could not fully and clearly reflect the atmosphere and principles of the vast world. When I completely remove the fog of ignorance from my heart, truly manifest the operation and principles of the vast world, and combine sincerity and principles without distinction, then I will become a great Confucian realm, a sage. Is there a level of psychological unity where the mind and the object are indistinguishable? Ji Tian pondered silently. Although Ji Tian could not fully manifest the great thousand meteorology as a sage, he realized that he seemed to be able to see the fluctuations of the void. In every move, the ripples in the void were actually visible to Ji Tian's naked eye. This is truly an incredible phenomenon. A mortal with naked eyes can even use their eyes to observe the ever-changing void between heaven and earth. The mind is like a pearl shrouded in mist, effortlessly projecting the surrounding atmosphere. With a lot of wisdom constantly dispelling delusions, the changes in the void between heaven and earth gradually become clearer. Every strand of thinking reflects the atmosphere of the vast world, with a very solid spirit. It seems that there is a world hidden in the soul that is constantly changing and unpredictable. The many wisdom theories of ancient philosophers and the theories of another world were integrated by Ji Tian, and this spiritual world is essentially a worldview constructed by the principles of wisdom. Moreover, Ji Tian surprisingly found that he could directly observe the changes in his body, such as bones, flesh, blood vessels, organs, skin membranes, qi, marrow, water, and valleys, all of which were observed by precise and meticulous thinking. And as delusions and desires decrease, this inner view becomes clearer. Tian had a clear understanding that the essence of the divine souls in two worlds was superimposed, making his own divine soul essence already very powerful. Wisdom and insight have also been superimposed, comprehending the truth, breaking free from various shackles and cages, and eliminating bottlenecks, walking on the path to the sages. The truth of understanding is mutually confirmed by heaven and earth. Even without practicing Taoism, one has already begun to appear supernatural. The pure and clear mind can easily observe the precise and ultimate changes in the human body, and can observe the ripples of the void. The mind and thoughts are like imprinting a world, revealing the atmosphere of a vast world. If I were to practice Taoism now, with the arrival of the spring thunder, I would be able to instantly cultivate 3 or even 4 levels of ghosts and immortals, reaching the level of one mind, one world, and even 5 levels of ghosts and immortals could give it a try. Tian was extremely happy in his heart, and this is a testament to his efforts and dedication. I have already walked on the path of sages, and I am very certain that I will be able to overcome all obstacles. There is still a mist of ignorance in my soul now. My next path is to gather righteousness and clarify my mind. I have read thousands of books in the past, but now I am going to walk that thousands of miles and practice the path of wisdom. And now my divine soul has grown extremely strong, with precise and meticulous control over my body and inner observation of the changes in my body. If I were to cultivate martial arts, I would definitely be a martial arts genius who would quickly reach the level of a great master of martial arts, and even the martial saint could not help but peak. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Writing. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Writing. Tian stood up and patted the dust off his body. Leaving her own quiet room, at this moment, a petite woman dressed as a maid walked over. Although dressed as a maid, her posture was dignified and her face was not particularly beautiful, but she exuded a certain aura. Xiaoqi, after cleaning the quiet room later, accompany me out for a while. Yes, young master. The maid named Xiaoqi nodded. Tian is a collateral descendant of a noble family, but he is much more relaxed than the poor families in this world. At least in order for his children to study well, Tian also assigned a maid to help them with their studies. For Xiaoqi, a servant girl, Tian certainly wouldn't treat her harshly, as most of them were poor people. On the contrary, Tian asked her to read, and if there was anything she didn't understand, she was also very interested in telling her. For the principles of reading, Tian only explains the sentence structure and semantics in a simple way, without unnecessary elaboration on any derivative meanings. In Tian's view, the simpler the principles are, the closer they are to reality. The teachings of the philosophers were originally intended to be as simple as possible, but later generations continued to annotate and expound on them, which made the simple and accessible principles bloated and confusing the seekers of knowledge. Practicing principles is a process of subtraction. In ancient times, Taoism was not well developed, but there were many achievements of the young god. Later on, Taoism became more prosperous, but the number of young god cultivators became rarer. After the emergence of medieval scholars, they used a large number of theories to explain principles and changed the ideological form of the Great Thousand World. However, the result was that there was no more young god born in the Great Thousand World. Why is this so? Because true truth does not require much advanced knowledge to be practiced. It only requires a clear understanding of one's true nature, breaking through all obstacles, and the truth will naturally be understood. The use of complex knowledge actually obscures one's true nature, causing people to lose their sincerity. Therefore, the sage does not die, and there are more thieves. The doctrine of the sage itself is the most terrifying thief in the world, and the hypocrisy of the human heart is increasing day by day. The truth is covered and embellished by beautiful articles, directly destroying one's true heart. Although this is not the intention of the saints, it is their fault. For example, in today's Deqian era, Neo-Confucianism is prevalent, emphasizing tomorrow's principles, eliminating human desires. The wisdom and kindness of the Deqian people do not increase, but their shrewdness and calculation become deeper, and their hearts become more hypocritical. Although it is said to follow the principles of the ruler, subject, father, and son, the result is that the ruler is not the ruler, subject, father, and son are not the sons. Zhu Xi, one of the ancient philosophers, was one of the pioneers of Neo-Confucianism. His original intention was to integrate humans with the principles of heaven, so as long as one understands the principles of heaven, human desires will naturally disappear. Therefore, there is no difference between humans and sages, only the difference between understanding the principles and not understanding them. But it is obvious that Neo-Confucianism has gradually been distorted and become a tool to imprison people's hearts. Countless false knowledge has been packaged into principles to harm and imprison the world. But these scholars and sages are also ordinary people who climb the ladder of wisdom. For their attendant Shaoqi, although she was only a peasant girl at first, Ji Tian taught her to read and enlighten her, and guided her to comprehend the true truth. Now Ji Tian's mind is clear, and his divine soul has already possessed supernatural powers. Even with the naked eye, he can accomplish some incredible things, as if he has practiced Taoism. In fact, this is Ji Tian's realization of the truth, and the supernatural powers naturally arise from the gradual integration of heaven and earth's mind. For example, now Ji Tian finds that his maid Shaoqi has a spiritual light on her head, about a foot pure white, surrounded by colorful lights and colors. In her chest and abdomen, there is a faint atmosphere of beautiful ink paintings of mountains and rivers. Although she is weak and unclear, as long as she perseveres, she still has great achievements. A brave and steadfast aura permeates the body, protecting about a foot around the body. This aura is the noble and righteous energy that scholars can manifest. It has no profound use, but only helps people maintain inner integrity and stability, preventing internal evil from arising and external evil from invading. If you encounter some little ghosts, a scolding can directly cause serious injuries or even make their souls run wild. If those decadent scholars find out that a woman's reading actually reveals a sense of righteousness, they may first doubt or disbelief, then become jealous and slander. Because where can a villain obtain Haranjingqi? Xiaoqi is not smart, but she is willing to put in hard work. Although she doesn't understand the usefulness of these sage teachings now, Xiaoqi never takes shortcuts and honestly listens to Ji Tian's orders to read. Regardless of the temperature, she keeps memorizing them. Ji Tian truly understands that in this extraordinary world, only the power of an individual can explain everything. With power, one has everything, and the truth is the true power. Ji Tian constantly guides his maid to read which books, which is exactly Ji Tian's reward for helping Shaoqi. For example, now, if Shaoqi were to practice Taoism, under Ji Tian's calculation, she would be able to quickly reach the level of manifestation and possession. Even if it were to reach the level of robbing ghost immortals, the probability would be much higher than the average person. Before, I was the first one to accumulate knowledge for Shaoqi, so I never preached any reason. The second thing is that I cannot be sure if I can speak the truth. Ji Tian's mind turned and he said, now Xiaoqi has clearly laid a foundation, and I am now certain that my path is correct. I have also adhered to the principles of the Taoist scriptures, thoroughly understood them, and transformed them into one-mind meditation. They have truly become my own thing, and this can also be passed down. After all, reading dead books is still useless. The key lies in application, and the best way to apply in this world is Taoism. Once I organize the knowledge into a set of methodologies, I can write it down and pass it on to Xiaoqi. After all, true freedom requires the support of strength. But we still need to find opportunities to seek some Taoist techniques and learn martial arts to protect ourselves. I now have a realm and a way, but I lack techniques. Ji Tian had a plan in his heart. He had traveled quite early and the great Zen temple had not yet been destroyed. However, Ji Tian knew that the collapse of the great Zen temple was imminent, and even if he didn't know the plot, he would make the same judgment. The power of the Great Zen Temple is too great, and even the people in the area of the Great Zen Temple only know about the Great Zen Temple and do not know about the Emperor. Even the orders of Zen Master Yin Hai, the abbot of the Great Zen Temple, may be even more useful than the Emperor in the territory of the Great Zen Temple. It is like a country in which politics and religion are integrated. If one were the Emperor Qian, they would have gone to great lengths to eliminate the Great Zen Temple. Moreover, the Great Zen Temple is too wealthy. In terms of running horses and offering incense, a small monk can prepare a good horse. Even a single incense stick cannot catch up with the time for offering incense. The legendary Qiankuan cloth bag can easily feed an army with the food hidden in it. Moreover, in order for the Supreme Tao to dominate the world, the Great Zen Temple is a necessary obstacle that must be removed, and various sects have also been trapped in the living environment and robbed of incense. You should know that the incense in this world is an extremely precious cultivation resource. For Taoist priests and some cultivation sects, the biggest pursuit is to become immortal and live forever. The behavior of the Great Zen Temple occupying a large amount of incense is simply a revenge against the path. The Great Zen Temple has a wealth of martial arts and Taoism, and all the aristocrats of the aristocratic family want to take a bite of meat from the body of the Great Zen Temple. The imperial family of Dakan Temple cannot accommodate it, the Taoist family cannot accommodate it, and the aristocratic family cannot accommodate it. And the royal family, sects, and aristocratic families are the true strength of the entire world, and the Great Zen Temple almost stands on the opposite side of the three. How can it exist for a long time? Ji Tian also hoped that the Great Zen Temple would quickly perish, just like a whale falling could feed many small fish. After all, according to the plot, Yi's path was to accept the legacy of the Great Zen Temple. If one can inherit the martial arts and Taoist techniques of the Great Zen Temple, they will inevitably be able to better practice their own principles, and the path of sages will be easier. Xiaoqi quickly walked into the quiet room to start cleaning, just to clean up the dust. Ji Tian walked to the nearby desk, held down the paper, and began to organize his knowledge in his heart. I am now preparing to write a draft of my own Taoist art. Although the only Taoist art I have been exposed to is the Taoist scripture, Ji Tian's thinking is clear and wise. He is unifying his knowledge to create a Taoist art that cultivates his soul, spirit, and thoughts, in order to verify his principles. Fu Zhixin, also known as Tianli, Zhidao, Wanxiang, and True Tathagata. Ji Tian was silently pondering and writing. If someone who could look at Qi was there, he would notice a pure and mixed cultural energy rising from above, blending with the sky. Just like when a warrior reaches a high place, the martial arts fist can reach the heavens and earth, with a powerful energy that can engage in bull fights and sense the stars, sun, and moon. If a great Confucian scholar adheres to the principles of the mind and has a pure mind, when he focuses on writing articles, there will also be a wave of literary spirit that rushes straight into the sky. That literary meaning is intangible and intangible, but it is vast and abundant in the universe. In the intangible world, it is as if the earth, sky, stars, sun and moon, mountains, valleys, wind, rain, thunder, electricity at this moment, a strange wheel turned and all the heavenly secrets were instantly obscured. At the moment when that will appeared, that spirit still flowed out. Some people who know how to look at Qi look at the sky in astonishment. In Yujing City, Wuhan Mansion, a beautiful man with a beautiful beard is practicing martial arts. His martial arts are extremely powerful, and he is like a divine king of the heavens, commanding all the gods and controlling all their destinies. This person is the most famous Hong Xuanji today. At this moment, he is about to combine his martial arts with the teachings of the Supreme Pill Sutra, and is bound to create his own immortal martial arts. The world is governed by the teachings of the Divine King, and a vague divine will rotates. Suddenly, the divine will faded and shattered. Hong Xuanji slowly withdrew his fist, stood quietly for a long time, and then couldn't help but sigh. Ah! The path of immortality is indeed profound, but for the sake of your Majesty's career, for me and His Majesty's ideals, I must achieve immortality. And at this moment, a will scattered from the sky, and Hong Xuanji was extremely shocked, his heart shaking. How could it be? Could it be that all the suns have returned to this world? End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Framework. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5 Framework Tai Shang Dao, De Chan Temple, Royal Family, Sage Family, Fang Xian Dao. Countless cultivators are trying their best to calculate something, but they only find a huge void. Fanjiao. The head of the Fan family's thoughts stopped, and suddenly, a series of thoughts rushed in. These spiritual lights quickly transform into transparent human forms, wearing robes that exude the charm of ancient sages. Brother Fan, do you know the reason for the change in heaven? The speaker was a middle-aged man, who was the head of the Wu family in a noble and virtuous family. In ancient times, Fanzi was the leader, and this trend naturally passed down. Although the sage family has some conflicts, they are generally in a state of fighting but not breaking, and often cooperate. The head of the Fan family shook his head and said, I have used Taoist calculation, but I still don't know what the reason is. Could it be that some of those lower-class people have truly understood the teachings of sages? Is there really going to be a place in this vast world? Said the head of the Wang family with a frown. It's impossible. Those despicable people are foolish and stubborn, how can they be on par with the suns? Since ancient times, except for Dream Divine Machine, this arrogant and inferior person, who has exceeded the control of our noble family and become the creator, who else can obtain the wisdom of the suns? The head of the Sun family shook his head and denied. This is not the arbitrary decision of the head of the Sun family, because in the entire world, it is recognized that the sage is supreme, and the major sage families and aristocratic families have monopolized martial arts and knowledge for thousands of years, so that at this time, the aristocratic family and the lower class are almost two species. And the noble family of sages almost monopolized the power of interpretation of the teachings of the philosophers and sages, thus holding a higher status than ordinary aristocratic families. I don't think there is a son born either. The head of the Vatican family shook his head and said, because the birth of all the suns has already taken up all the energy of the 99 divine realms, and the energy of the suns eventually merged to form the Yizhi. Now is not the time for the birth of the Yizhi. The leaders of the Sun, Wu, and Wang families all nodded slightly when they heard this statement. What do you mean by that literary meaning, Brother Fan? Someone asked. There are roughly two possibilities. The first one is that the legacy of the philosophers has emerged, which is the literary meaning of the philosophers, explaining the inheritance treasure of the power of their teachings. The second one is that there are wise men and great Confucian scholars who recite the teachings of the philosophers and write splendid articles, said the head of the Fan family. I see. The head of the Wang family stroked his beard and nodded in praise, but secretly sneered in his heart. This doesn't seem like the appearance of a splendid article. This old fox, there are so many changes and creations in the vast world. Even the ancient emperor cannot fully embody all the creations in the vast world. Even if he suddenly jumps out, it's not that strange. The old man deliberately didn't mention this situation. I'm afraid he already has a plan. The head of the Wang family had a refined and peaceful expression on his face, and his thoughts began to move. If it's just an ordinary wise person, these sage families don't matter. On the contrary, these wise people can only be born as vassals of the suns, and can only annotate the wisdom of the suns. The knowledge of the wise people can only become the strength of the sage family. The splendid articles left behind can only help the Taoist arts of the sage family become stronger. But when a true saint is born, it is completely different. That is a new truth, a new wisdom, and a struggle to seize the rule of the sage family. This is something that all sage families firmly resist. If there really is someone who has already mastered the wisdom of sages, has their own reasoning, and started writing their own teachings, then I must quickly find that one. Whether it's capturing the person's divine soul and devouring it to understand the truth behind it, helping me become one of the sons, serving as a stepping stone for me to become a creator, or directly using Taoist enslavement to serve our noble family, it's all excellent. Thinking of this, I looked at the heads of other noble families and saw each other smiling at each other. The Qian Imperial Palace. Young Pan, who was inside the palace, looked up at the sky, first in shock, then with a slightly grim expression on his face. The royal family does not allow the practice of Taoism. This rule is not a universal principle, but a personal one. In the outside world, the dream divine machine of the Supreme Tao is the top expert in the world and the immortal who resides in the world. However, for Yang Pan, the dream divine machine is an absolute enemy of life and death. Several generations of Emperor Qian died of a sudden illness in the Deep Palace. How ridiculous this is, it's just because Dream Machine said it wants to monitor the world, because Dream Machine doesn't allow it. This is the power of the world's top expert, the principle explained by the world's top expert. The teachings of the royal family are not as powerful as those of the Dream God Machine, so his father and grandfather paid the price of offending that person in setting the law. Originally, nothing could have changed. The Supreme Tao oversaw the world, and the emperor surrendered to the feet of the Dream Divine Machine. But by chance, he met his good friend and vassal Hong Xuanji, and gained the opportunity of the Tao of creation, finally giving Yang Pan the confidence to resist. Although the royal family cannot practice Taoism, they understand that they must practice martial arts in order to have the opportunity to resist. Therefore, the imperial family of De Qian continuously encourages their children to study, accumulate wisdom and eliminate distractions. They also use some means of looking for qi, but are still acquiesced by the Dream Divine Machine. Therefore, the emperor still has the ability to observe qi. It was precisely because of the appearance of this phenomenon that Yang Pan understood that whether it was the medieval scholars who began to fall behind chess pieces, or the birth of true sages, they were definitely obstacles to his path as the holy emperor. Suddenly, Yang Pan seemed to have thought of something, his fierce and angry expression slowly fading away, and his entire face became expressionless. After a moment of silence, Yang Pan's eyes shone brightly and he continued to speak, "Someone, Xuanwu Wenho will enter the palace." For a moment, the wind and clouds surged, and Ji Tian constantly wrote comprehensive theories about the mind, society, mathematics, discourse, Taoism, and so on. All the entanglements in the soul are let go, forgetting all the worries, and the wisdom of thinking becomes more active than ever before. It is through contemplation that there is no movement in movement, and there is no stillness in stillness. It is born from the Dharma. Ji Tian wrote while reflecting on his spiritual gem. He wants to explore what ideas are. What is wisdom? Where can we delve into the truth? What are the reasons for the construction of physical phenomena? What is the true nature of all the laws in the world? Where is the fundamental wisdom of the suns and the ancient yang gods? As Ji Tian pondered, countless intelligent spiritual lights in his brain were flashing rapidly. Confucius, historical sages, ancient emperors and gods who led the human race in opening up humanity, as well as the sages, Taoist scriptures, and Buddhist scriptures on earth. From their perspective, utilizing their ideological theories, what is the world from their perspective? Every word and sentence written down contains countless knowledge and thinking for calculation. Ji Tian's current wisdom can already understand that there is no difference between all laws and illegality, and there is no difference between all wisdom and non-wisdom. We have already mastered all the methods of right and wrong. A large number of worldviews are being speculated in the mind, and if such thinking is placed in the minds of ordinary Taoist masters, it will immediately conflict due to the inability to integrate a large amount of reasoning with each other. At times, thoughts may be damaged, and at times, their souls may be shattered. Those who speak of various laws, that is, those who speak of non-laws, are inherently unable to speak, and are called those who speak of various laws. Yin and Yang, returning to the void, returning to the elixir, spiritual ruins, nirvana, and other things are all being explained by Ji Tian's rapid various methods. 1. Li, Tao, Xin. The philosophers have put the fundamental principles in this way, but they have been pushing to reach the fundamental place. All wisdom talks about that one, but in fact, that one is a name as one, and the philosophers have differentiated different names. The thoughts were running rapidly, and the wheel of reincarnation in his mind was also spinning, neither slow nor urgent. However, as Ji Tian comprehended the truth behind it, the images on the wheel became increasingly vivid. Amidst the ignorance of Ji Tian, the cycle of reincarnation constantly reveals the immeasurable weather of the heavens, and the mind constantly reflects on these weather conditions, using the utmost reasoning to investigate. But seeing the mist above the pearl of the soul decreasing even more, emitting a bright light that illuminates all the weather inside and outside. After cleaning the quiet room, Xiaoqi walked out and saw Ji Tian writing. She couldn't help but walk over to Ji Tian's side, tilting her head and silently looking at the words he was writing. There is no dichotomy between the divine and the mortal. Understanding oneself is the divine, confusion is the mortal, rational mind is the divine, and mixed mind is the mortal. The sages are not the various phenomena, but only in their own hearts. When they think clearly, they immediately become saints. When they think unclearly, they are ordinary people. Xiaoqi nodded in confusion when she saw such a sentence. I began to constantly recall the books that the young master was teaching and reciting in my heart, feeling that those truths were all internalized by my innate sincerity. Remembering the image and teachings of the saints, the heart is the heart of the saints, practicing the teachings of the saints, the self is the manifestation of the saints. So all sentient beings remember and practice the teachings of the saints, and they are the saints. And there is nothing in the universe that goes against reason, from the vastness of the universe to the slightest shaking of sand and dust. Therefore, all the heavens, the earth, the void, the weather, wisdom, and so on are inherently Tao, all of which are sincere manifestations. Xiaoqi couldn't help but start recalling all the thoughts and memories of the past, pondering various truths, and examining everything from an unprecedented perspective. To examine oneself, others, the world, and even the lofty sages from an unprecedented perspective. Ji Tian's thoughts gradually converged, just like a river eventually flowing into the sea, and literary thoughts also had an end. Ji Tian's narration began to slowly come to an end. Putting the pen aside, I finally organized a framework of my own knowledge and Taoist system, and used my existing wisdom and knowledge system to continuously measure and calculate this vast world. I already have the idea of Taoism, and my knowledge needs to organize all the phenomena in this world. 1,000 wheels, a sea of incense. This is the Taoist art I want to design, and the essence of Taoist art is the change of thoughts. A large amount of knowledge was rapidly emerging and constantly being organized. Ji Tian continued to ponder, it's best to combine martial arts, and martial arts and Taoism should advance together. Turning his head, he looked at Xiaoqi next to him. This glance made Ji Tian's heart slightly lift. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Contact. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 Contact. But at this moment, the weather around Xiaoqi gradually rose, and the description of the vast mountains and rivers before her chest and abdomen gradually became clear and precise. The spiritual light above the head became light and ethereal, and the surrounding atmosphere gradually became extremely clear. If the temperament of Xiaoqi in the past was ordinary jade with impurities, although warm and smooth, there were flaws, then the current temperament is becoming increasingly purified and gradually becoming superior jade. The Haoran Jingqi around is slowly growing stronger. Ji Tian was both surprised and pleased to see such an atmosphere. Shanzai, I was originally planning to let Xiaoqi practice Taoism first, enhance her thinking ability, and then pass on the principles and various methods she had gained to her. Unexpectedly, she naturally enlightened and already had a foundation that could serve as a foundation for all the sons. It seems that she has already realized her true nature and realized her true nature. As long as she holds on to her wisdom, she will never be able to achieve the accomplishments of the other sons as a son in the future. Relying on learning is never possible to reach the level of the philosophers. Only by discovering the true truth, the sage and the mortal are no different, can we eliminate falsehood and preserve truth, save gold, and achieve sages. If the sage is regarded as a goal to be achieved, then one can never become a saint, because the law of the sage is the true truth, and if one has thoughts of holiness and non-holiness in their heart, then they are not saints, because the true truth is that there is no superiority, no holiness, and no right or wrong. Xiaoqi pondered hard. Although her memory was not good, her past hard work, perseverance, and honest memorization also revealed a lot of knowledge. The truth was deeply imprinted in Xiaoqi's heart. In daily life, she unconsciously followed the teachings of her disciples to think. Finally, fate had arrived, and she saw the most fundamental truth. Without the need for inspiration from others, she naturally began to constantly integrate everything from the past. However, nothing can be achieved overnight. The splendid articles of the scholars say that there are all kinds of methods, and there are various troubles in the world. It is ultimately difficult to instantly eliminate all distractions and confusions. The truth is through enlightenment, and things need to be gradually achieved through various means. So after Xiaoqi pondered more and more about the truth behind the sage's teachings, various contradictions and mysteries stuck in her heart, causing her endless distress. She couldn't think much and her eyes turned slightly red. Ah! Wake up! Ji Tian shouted, his voice coming from Dan Tian. In Xiaoqi's ear, it was like a spring thunder explosion, waking up from deep contemplation. Looking at those puzzled eyes, Ji Tian couldn't bear it. Sit on that chair. Ji Tian instructed her to sit on the chair and looked at Xiaoqi's slightly bewildered expression as he spoke. Sit down, rest assured, rest assured. After speaking, Ji Tian walked back and forth, quietly pondering how to start. Suddenly, a flash of inspiration flashed in his mind. The spiritual root nurtures the source of pregnancy, and the spiritual nature cultivates the Tao. Chaos is not divided into heaven and earth, chaos is vast and elusive, with no one to see. Since Pangu broke through Hongmeng and opened up the distinction between clarity and turbidity at the level of Ji Tian, looking back at his previous life's journey to the West to relieve the misfortune, it has been discovered that it is not at all a novelist's work. Tell me about the opening poem title of Journey to the West, because this poem title has already mastered all the fundamental methods of cultivating the mind. The author of this masterpiece, Journey to the West, is definitely a great practitioner and wise person who is proficient in Confucianism, Buddhism, and Taoism. In the world of Yang God, where the truth is power, Journey to the West is a superb Taoist classic. If an ordinary cultivator obtains it, it is simply a treasure that can change their destiny against the heavens. After finishing the poem, Ji Tian looked at Xiaoqi, who had already calmed down, and said, "Tell me what you asked. What is a saint? Those who reach the Tao. How to reach the Tao? Get out of school and get up. What's the solution?" Xiaoqi asked her fundamental confusion directly, while Jitian relied on her own soul to answer it fundamentally. Almost all wisdom is revealed through communication. Xiaoqi is now like a rough jade, while Ji Tian is like an excellent jade carver, constantly eliminating the stubborn stones outside the jade and meticulously carving them. But I saw the spiritual light rising above Xiaoqi's head, reflecting various celebratory clouds. There were heavenly beings singing and dancing, white horses crashing, heavenly dragons dancing in the wind and clouds, and lions patrolling the territory. Countless fragrant flowers bloom, emitting a fragrance. Countless treasures turn into raindrops, shining brightly on their heads. The meteorological map of the chest and abdomen has become increasingly clear in the world of evolution. These weather conditions are becoming increasingly magnificent and far-reaching. If asked what is the greatest thing in the world, Ji Tian would only answer. A big heart. The universe that can cover countless worlds of stars is nothing but a speck of dust in my heart. The incredible vast void of the four poles up and down is nothing but a remnant cloud in my heart. Looking at Xiaoqi's appearance, Ji Tian felt a sense of relief. Although Xiaoqi had always been with Ji Tian as a maid, Ji Tian did not see it that way. On the contrary, Ji Tian has always regarded Xiaoqi as a good friend and treated her like a daughter. Although Ji Tian is only 17 years old in this life, with the age of his previous life, his psychological age is already over 30, although Ji Tian has never had a daughter. How to become a saint? Little Qi suddenly asked. Ji Tian suddenly fell silent for a moment. He already had an answer. The reason for hesitating for a moment was because Ji Tian had not yet become a saint, and he was afraid that his teachings would be difficult for Xiaoqi to believe. Then he laughed inwardly and said, "There's no need to persist in this. He who has become a saint should prove immeasurable merit." How to obtain immeasurable merit? The immeasurable merit cannot be obtained, without contamination or attachment, without mindfulness, with true and constant nature, to be pure and pure, to be sincere and sincere, without stagnation in mindfulness, and to be clear, which is the immeasurable merit. Ji Tian shared his own insights. Xiaoqi sat silently, taking deep breaths, and finally spoke up. "What's the use of reason?" Ji Tian shook his head and said, "Reason is useless, whether you know it or not, whether you don't understand it or not, the way is there. Freedom is always there, naturally. But reason is useful to people." Ji Tian turned around and said to Xiaoqi, "Do you know that there is Dao Shu?" Without waiting for Xiaoqi's answer, Ji Tian spoke directly and said, "There is Taoist art in this world. Reason represents power. Ancient sages, those who comprehend reason, practice Taoism, leap to heaven, and become creators. What is the creator? He can transcend the world, create great things, enter and exit the void, connect with the heavens and the earth, play freely, transform creatures, possess vast supernatural powers, and infinite wisdom. If we talk about the Creator's great power in detail, I can only say that even the Emperor de Qian, under the Creator's feet, cannot even be considered a speck of dust. This is the power of reason, its usefulness is the great power of the ancient philosophers. And reading to understand reason, the true purpose is to make people become philosophers." Xiaoqi suddenly froze, unable to speak for a long time. Suddenly, tears welled up in his eyes, and he quickly left his seat. He immediately knelt down on the ground, throwing himself all over and bowing in reverence. His voice trembled as he spoke. "I, Xiaoqi, am just a lowly maid. I don't know if it's a blessing accumulated over several lifetimes. When I met the young master, he never had any expectations or contempt for me. Instead, he constantly gave me a huge treasure. But I didn't realize it, but the young master had endless patience with me, just like my father. I really don't know how to repay the young master's kindness." Ji Tian stepped forward to help his maid, shook his head, and said, "I have always believed in you. If you really want to repay me, then work hard and never slack off. The quick proof is the true wisdom of sages, and this is the true reward. Besides that, the so-called service to me is not truly rewarded to me. Ji Tian is also looking forward to it. Perhaps he has the possibility of cultivating new sons himself. If a woman's spirit leaps out in one fell swoop, enduring 7 levels of thunder tribulations in a row, what would the expressions of those old Confucian scholars look like? That would be quite interesting, right? Thinking of that scene, but it was also a good pleasure. Young master is a true sage. Tell me the most fundamental truth of the sage's teachings directly. Knowing what young master says, there is nothing wrong. I am willing to use my unwavering courage to prove the sage's teachings and repay his kindness." Watching Xiaoqi constantly tremble with excitement and shed tears. "You are no longer my maid, you are my child and my disciple. You are my eldest disciple in this world." Next, Ji Tian will continue to explain some details to Xiaoqi, as well as his understanding of Taoism and the Taoist system he designed based on the Taoist scriptures. In Ji Tian's view, the so-called Taoist system is a methodology for studying the world. Generally, cultivators who acquire some Taoist techniques and become ghosts and immortals are just monsters and monsters, they are all little ghosts. I only know the art, but I cannot understand the way. Using a set of methodologies to explore the world, to understand what the heavenly way is, what the great thousand world is, and how to express principles. Understanding these and seeking truth is the true cultivator, the true immortal. This is the original intention of the ancient Yangshan and holy emperors to open up humanity. So after the prosperity of Taoism, the number of young gods decreased, which is the reason why people's sincerity was deceived. Ji Tian told Shaoqi a set of cognitive systems about the vast world, and it continued until late at night. Ji Tian stopped and asked Shaoqi to go to sleep, and encouraged her. When Shaoqi left, Ji Tian returned to the quiet room. Due to the cycle of reincarnation, Ji Tian's understanding and wisdom continued to grow, so he could rely on meditation to replace sleep early on. Originally, Ji Tian was going to leave today to buy some bows and swords, but he had to wait until tomorrow to buy them. Because Ji Tian is preparing to learn martial arts, there are many martial arts from Earth. Although they cannot compare to the immortal martial arts of this world, it is not difficult to strengthen oneself at first. After strengthening oneself, try to find ways to seek the immortal martial arts of this world. My mind sinks into the darkness, my thoughts enter the cycle of reincarnation, and then into the space of reincarnation. Prepare to watch the great will turn around, observe and comprehend the principles behind it, and help oneself quickly enter the realm of sages. Entering the space of the big will reversal, I saw another season day, but saw that season day with a worried face, constantly calculating and researching what. Hey! Have you also come to this reincarnation space? Why, what are you thinking? Another season turned around and approached, saying, you can take a look for yourself. After speaking, he placed his hand on the shoulder of Yangshan Ji Tian. Memory begins to transfer. Cover the sky. Yangshan Ji Tian's eyes widened in surprise, and he couldn't help but smack his tongue. Please support me. Ha! End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Communication. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7 Communication. Zhitian, the background of that world is a bit fierce, Yangshan Ji Tian exclaimed in surprise. Who said it's not? Especially as I watched Yi Fan's face transform into another person's face, and my memory told me it should be this kind of face, but in my mind, I can still see Yi Fan's original face. Ji Tian, who was hiding in the world, said with a conflicted expression. Yang Shinji, the celestial body, realized this memory and even goosebumps appeared. It was eerie, it was really eerie. It's like a different person, but the people around me are completely unaware of it. I also think so, but even though I know that the person has been replaced, I still believe that the person with a completely different appearance is the original one. This is not an ordinary supernatural event. Yangshan Ji Tian felt a hint of deep fear in it, and then relaxed. After all, it was not from his own world. He directly joked, what darkness did you come into contact with, the most terrifying darkness in your place. Compared to this kind of darkness, the old, sick, and disabled in the penalty area are all some cute little ones. Jitian rolled his eyes and even joked about himself. This person is simply hopeless. Didn't you pay attention? I can remember Yi Fan's original appearance. Oh. What does this mean? Quickly say that the reincarnation disc is the best in the world. Look, it has ruined you. Yangshan Jitian chuckled. In fact, the cycle of reincarnation may also be the number one in heaven. Jitian pondered for a while and corrected the mistake in the words of Yangshan Jitian. That is to say, the lowest level treasure of the reincarnation disc is also at the level of an immortal emperor. Yangshan Jitian pondered carefully, his eyes watching the huge reincarnation disk rotate, countless worlds, boundless beings, and infinite weather, all of which were enveloped in the reincarnation disk, and he couldn't help but ponder. Ji Tian deeply realized something. He turned out to be a big hanging wall, and he was right. If he didn't open the hanging wall, how could he still wander in the various heavens and worlds? Effort like cheating is useless, only by working hard to cheat is the true way out. So, the soul particles you detected in that world are likely the pollen path. The current pollen path is polluted. Will there be any problem with using soul particles? Yangshan Ji Tian frowned slightly and said. Soul particles are objective and practical phenomena, just like the potential gate of the human body. Atoms and molecules are also objective and practical things. If these objective laws and phenomena are contaminated by strange races, then I am directly a strange race, from the body to the soul level. Zetian Jitian replied, and then Zetian Jitian spoke up, I am just borrowing the information and rhyme between heaven and earth contained in soul particles, the perception and wisdom of living beings, and not as a simple behavior of only devouring soul particles. My original path was to constantly enhance my intelligence, then integrate the power of human technological civilization, and prepare to take the leap of technology. However, I have realized that I am already in the dark, and naturally have the evolution law passed down from the wilderness. My original path was to use strong wisdom to control the operation of laws and regulations, and to create a sturdy and undamaged body for myself to walk in the universe. Speaking of this, Jitian raised his chin with his hands crossed, pondered for a moment, and said, it's just that the evolutionary style of the Jitian world is a bit unsuitable for me. I originally wanted to become a mage, a long-range artillery. The Jitian cultivators are essentially a group of warriors born for battle. It's okay, the so-called warriors are just superficial, essentially the application of the laws and regulations of heaven and earth. The so-called battles are also the communication between Taoist methods. You just need to treat them as war mages, Yang Shin Ji Tian comforted casually. Jitian nodded, but in fact, he didn't care. Being able to practice and seek longevity is a good thing, and there's no need to be picky. Do you want to compete for the life of the first emperor? Yangshan Ji Tian spoke up. Controversy, why not argue? Jitian said, to study the universe, at least one needs to be at the level of a great emperor to truly delve deeper. The other quasi-emperors and great saints, how powerful they may seem, are just wandering in a corner of the universe. Only the great emperor can truly travel freely in the universe and study the Tao. At this point, the spiritual energy of Jitian suddenly surged, his eyes flickering, and he spoke. When I knew I was in the world of Jitian, I had been thinking about how to achieve the great emperor. In my opinion, the cultivation of the world of covering the heavens is divided into 5 parts. Dao Zhe, Dao Xin, Yuan Shen, Mana, and Body Destiny. The so-called emperor has 5 conditions. If the Tao presses down on 10,000 paths, the heavenly heart becomes the Tao heart, the Yuan Shen transforms into the emperor Yuan Shen, the magical power transforms into the emperor power, and the body destiny transforms into the emperor body. Meeting these 5 conditions can be called the great emperor, not to mention the last 4 conditions. The first one is very difficult, and your era is destined to have 2 emperors suppressing Yakong. Yangshan Ji Tianhui replied, that is to say, if you become an emperor, it is equivalent to facing the power of 2 great emperors and 10,000 paths. Moreover, there is only one Tianqin seal. Emperor Cheng, in addition to the usual heavenly heart seal, after overcoming imperial tribulations, used absolute power to break through all paths and prove the Tao with force. Therefore, the great emperor's Tao is essentially using his own Tao to rule over other Tao principles. So, can wisdom also be considered as a kind of power? If I use absolute wisdom and calculation power to deduce and calculate all the possibilities of 10,000 paths, so that my Tao directly evolves and governs the entire 10,000 paths, can my Tao also be considered the ultimate Tao? Can it also be considered as one path suppressing 10,000 paths? With absolute wisdom, calculate the synthesis of all the ways, sort out and decipher all the possibilities of all the ways. Yang Shenjitian deduced, but with his existing knowledge, he couldn't find any flaws, and there is feasibility. Then Yang Shenjitian turned his head and said to Zhitian Jitian. Using wisdom to prove the Tao can also be considered as a form of using strength to prove the Tao. But how can the imprint of the heavenly heart be resolved? The heavenly heart mark, as the name suggests, is the heart of the heavenly way, using the heart of the heavenly way to govern the entire universe. Conventional practitioners take the heavenly heart as their own heart, calculating and governing the myriad paths of heaven and earth. So, what about using their own heart to replace the heavenly heart? Ji Tian replied with a smile, if one's mind, calculating all the cosmic paths, changes, using their own great way as a lever to govern all the myriad paths, it is replacing the heavenly heart with their own heart. Yang Shen Ji Tian remained silent, silently deducing in his heart that since both Ji Tian were the same person and had similar intelligence, there was no apparent problem. I have calculated that this road has a certain possibility, but there will definitely be unimaginable terrible hardships and misfortunes. Yang Shen Ji Tian warned. It's nothing, just proposing an idea and design. If someone dares not even think about it, isn't it pure waste? However, Zhitian Jitian didn't pay much attention. If you want to achieve something, there will inevitably be obstacles. If you dare not even overcome obstacles, you cannot achieve anything. When the fate comes, you can directly face it. Ji Tian is quite open-minded about this. Okay, it's okay if you look at it this way. Yang Shenjishan nodded and stopped speaking. He began to sit cross-legged, watching the slow rotation of the big wheel, blending his thoughts with the changes in the big wheel, and thus observing and comprehending the truth. The fog in the soul decreases as the will rotates, and Yang Shen Ji Tian spoke up, you also sit down and understand the principles of the great will turning. Although we all come from the same source, different experiences lead to different personalities and roots, and the principles of understanding are also different. Moreover, the principles of understanding and insights can be superimposed. Zhitian Jitian nodded and said, I have this intention. After speaking, they also sat down cross-legged and began to understand together. After pondering for a long time, Zhitian Jitian slowly opened his eyes and said, I received the scriptures left by the Emperor of the Wild in the bronze coffin. Some of them are difficult for me to understand and some are obscure. Can you help me advise and advise? After speaking, Ji Tian, who was covering the sky, shared the truth he had just comprehended before leaving in a flash. Ji Tian, who was left with the young god alone, carefully understood the changes in the great will turning. Yang Shen Jitian also sat quietly for a long time before leaving the wheel space. Yang Shen Ji Tian slowly opened his eyes and saw that the east had turned white. He was ready to study and complete today's homework, and then went to buy bows and swords to practice some martial arts postures to strengthen his body. Zhitian Jitian woke up from his meditation and practice, looking at the quiet and beautiful scenery of the surrounding spiritual ruins and caves. He couldn't help but recall his travels in the bronze coffin. Ji Tian got up from the darkness and understood that he had already been taken into the bronze coffin. At this moment, someone began to use their phone to light up and count the number of people. After a series of farces, they finally settled down. At this time, Ji Tian didn't care much. After realizing that he had arrived in a world where he could practice, Ji Tian had already begun to plan his future in his heart. Who are you? Our classmates' gathering is only 20.9 people, where are you from? A statistician looked at Ji Tian and asked in horror. I came to Mount Taishan to travel, met the bronze coffin, and then was inhaled by the bronze coffin. Ji Tian replied patiently. You're lying. Faced with such a big change, why don't you have any expression of fear? Are you the mastermind? Let me out quickly, said the other person in great fear. When encountering major events, one needs to have composure. Being left or right is just a matter of death. It's better to abandon all fears, think calmly, and think of ways to escape. Ji Tian explained, panic is not only difficult to think, but also cannot solve anything. Listening to Ji Tian's words, feeling the calmness on Ji Tian's body, their hearts gradually calmed down. You haven't said who you are yet. Someone looked at Ji Tian with caution, as if Ji Tian was the devil who could drag them into hell at any time. I can testify that he is also from our school and my business partner. It's really a coincidence that he came to Mount Taishan today to travel. Yi Fan came out and explained to the people around him. Ji Tian looked at Yi Fan and nodded, but felt a slight confusion in his heart. He turned his head and forgot about Yi Fan's face. At this moment, Ji Tian felt a huge sense of disconnection in his heart, but he didn't know where it came from. The situation was not right now, and he couldn't sort out his thoughts. Maybe Yi Fan colluded with others, a man said with a strange tone. Lu Yunji, the situation is complicated now. If you want to be saved, don't say anything unnecessary, a woman frowned and said. Ji Tian shook his head and said, let's not say who the mastermind is for now. After all, the situation is urgent, and finding a way out quickly is the key. We don't have time to play any reasoning games. You said there are a total of 20.9 people, but with me, there are only 30 people. So now there's a question, what is that? Ji Tian pointed to the wriggling shadow on the ground with his finger. Everyone looked towards the direction pointed by Ji Tian. Ah! A scream of terror came. Please collect and recommend. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. The Lei Yin Temple. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. The Lei Yin Temple, Ghosts. The wriggling black figure made a trembling sound. In such an environment, it was truly terrifying, and many of the students immediately screamed, making the average person's hair stand on end. Ghost. The black figure struggled slowly. The screams of terror shook the brain, causing pain. Ji Tian covered his ears and rubbed his temples. Ghost place. The person struggled, but it was still Yi Fan who came forward to recognize Pang Bo. Watching these people look at Pang Bo in terror, no longer bothering Ji Tian. Ji Tian glanced at these people a few times, and after several startling moments, their strength was drained and they were all quite honest, nodding in satisfaction. Ji Tian lit up his phone and constantly scanned everything around him, seeing countless patterns of ferocious beasts that were both ferocious and lifelike, as if he wanted to break free from the constraints of the coffin wall and run out to devour everything. Gradually, Ji Tian approached the coffin in the middle, specifically, the outer one was called a coffin, and the inner one was called the real coffin. At this moment, a very faint sound appeared in Ji Tian's ear. Heaven. Dao. Lose. The sound is blurry, and there are also scattered snowflake sounds in it, like an old radio with poor signal. Ji Tian quickly held his breath to eliminate all distractions, and his voice seemed to become clearer. However, Ji Tian was not satisfied and began to imagine the never-ending cycle of reincarnation in his mind. As the cycle of reincarnation rotated, Ji Tian felt his consciousness becoming increasingly sharp, and his thinking and wisdom leaped to a higher level. His spiritual thinking seemed to encompass all the worlds of the upper and lower quadrupole, and he could also perceive the small touches that seemed like dust. It even seems as if one can see that everything is governed by an intangible and intangible law. The sound grew louder and louder, gradually like thunder, like a big clock and a drumbeat. A large amount of obscure information flowed directly into Ji Tian's brain, and in Ji Tian's mind, an incalculable scripture appeared, with strange ancient character changes, as if swallowing the mysteries of the universe. It seems to have told you the truth about the universe, but it is confusing and difficult to understand. Ji Tian's thinking diverges, and a large amount of knowledge and concepts are captured by him. He wants to constantly calculate this scripture, which is only a few hundred words long. Just as Ji Tian was immersed in his own thoughts, the group of classmates gathered outside, watching Ji Tian's hand caressing the bronze coffin and standing with his eyes closed, emitting various faint rays of light around him. This light is gentle, but as soon as I see everyone's hearts settle down, a flicker of light flows, revealing a sense of divinity. As Ji Tian remained motionless, everyone began to wonder. He won't be possessed, will he? It's not impossible to be possessed by a ghost in such a ghostly place, said one person skeptically. At this moment, Ji Tian slowly opened his eyes and glanced indifferently at the speaker. "Brother, what happened to you just now?" A burly man came forward, named Pang Bo. "Did you hear any sound?" Ji Tian lowered his voice, frowned, and turned his head to stare at them as he spoke. After Ji Tian finished speaking, everyone's hearts trembled slightly. Even a strong and nervous man like Pang Bo felt like he was trembling. "What? What sound? Can't you hear it?" Ji Tian frowned and continued, "Listen, that voice is hard to imagine and indescribable, right around us. It's repeating over and over again. Can't you hear it?" After speaking, scanning these confused faces, their faces became serious, and they lowered their heads and began to ponder. Everyone felt a tremble in their hearts, and their thoughts began to scatter. Actually, Ji Tian just doesn't want to answer. There is no limit to human stupidity and evil. It's better to let them fall into fear and not think recklessly. Of course, Ji Tian doesn't like to lie and tells the truth. These people began to huddle together and unconsciously began to snuggle up to each other. Perhaps for a while, perhaps a long time has already passed. Suddenly, the bronze coffin trembled violently, followed by a series of dramatic tremors, like the sound of a sky shattering and earth shattering. Everyone was restless in battle, and Ji Tian leaned against the wall of the coffin, sitting on the ground as steadily as possible, constantly regulating his breathing and muscles to prevent damage to his internal organs. He protected his head with his hands. After multiple ups and downs, it finally calmed down. Yi Fan's classmates began to discuss their own situation. Suddenly, someone mixed with excitement and fear, loudly said, "Light, the light casting in from outside." This sound seemed to have given them courage. Ji Tianchi stood up and followed them out of the bronze coffin. "Inghua." Yi Fan's heart trembled as he saw these two words. Then explain the meaning of firefly to everyone. "Oh my God." The foreigner's eyes widened. How could this be possible? We are on Mars, not on Earth. Everyone panicked and panicked. Ji Tian looked at the reddish-brown soil around him, lost in thought, and constantly scanned the surroundings. What made Ji Tian ponder was that there were actually many soul particles on this desolate and dazzling star. Moreover, many soul particles have extremely high quality, and Ji Tian quickly understood where these soul particles came from. Yi Fan looked at the panicked people around him. Even if he could maintain his demeanor, his face turned pale. When looking at Ji Tian's calm expression and understanding the meaning of the screen, it still feels as if it is in ordinary times. I couldn't help but feel some admiration in my heart. There are great warriors, whose power cannot be measured, and their strength cannot be controlled. Even if something big happens, it cannot affect my soul. Ji Tian sensed someone looking at him, turned his head, looked at the source of his gaze, and realized it was Yi Fan. He then smiled and said hello. After calming down, Ji Tian began to contemplate the cycle of reincarnation in his mind. A large number of qi machines intertwined and merged in a complex way. Ji Tian saw a vitality enveloping the surroundings, and a huge evil energy buried from underground. Although the changes in the qi machine are complex, Ji Tian still learns the easy numbers he has learned. A large number of graphics and algorithms emerge in his mind, breaking through the obstacles of the qi machine. Finally, Ji Tian looks towards a distant place where there is an unimaginable divine power. Soon, Ji Tian's brain felt intense pain and his mental state was somewhat exhausted. He closed his eyes and closed this extreme means of breathing. Only a faint glimmer of aura remains to judge good or bad fortune. It can be said that Ji Tian, who possesses the ability to reincarnate and hope for Qi, is simply a born heavenly machine master. The so-called Qi machine is essentially the manifestation of the flow of the Tao, and its true appearance is the heavenly machine. At this moment, Ji Tian suddenly woke up and looked at Yi Fan's appearance, his heart trembling. As the cycle of reincarnation turned, the mist in his mind instantly dissipated, and two segmented memories appeared simultaneously in Ji Tian's mind. Immediately calm down and continue to follow the crowd to explore the Inqua star. The followers walked through the ruins and eventually saw an ancient temple, a Bodhi tree, and a green lamp. Everyone rushed in, instinctively approaching to grab the magical tool. Ji Tian also walked in step by step, bowing respectfully to the stone Buddha at the Lei Yin Temple with his hands clasped together. After all, it's not surprising that many people pay their respects. Ji Tian was very skeptical that at this moment, the gaze of a quasi-emperor was cast upon this place. It was better not to be arrogant or offended, but to seek nothing wrong. Then, Ji Tian's soul was like transparent glass, reflecting on the surrounding scenery. The most valuable ancient lamp had been taken away by Yi Fan, and Ji Tian relied on the clearest state of his soul to find his own protective tool. Quickly, Ji Tian obtained the Vajra pestle behind the stone Buddha. However, after Ji Tian obtained the Vajra pestle, the person named Lu Yunji looked at Ji Tian with an extremely gloomy expression. After obtaining the Vajra pestle, Ji Tian once again bowed to the stone Buddha and then looked at the treasure tool that seemed to be used by a deity. Ji Tian's heart couldn't help but capture the Tao rhyme constantly emitted by the Vajra pestle, and a principle of being strong and indestructible, and destroying all enemies was slowly sorted out. The holy Emperor Yuan of the young god world once left behind the teachings of Mahavajra Prajnaparamita. Maha means vastness, Vajra represents firmness and immortality, Prajnaparamita is the fundamental wisdom, and Paramitha means reaching the other shore. So the way to the other side of the holy Emperor Yuan is to reach the other side with the vast, sturdy and unbreakable ultimate wisdom. In the world of covering the sky, it is also important to explore and create methods, ultimately breaking through the path of immortality and achieving immortality. If I could understand the principle of being strong and indestructible on the Vajra pestle, destroying all enemies, it would be of great benefit to me and myself in the young god world. Ji Tian sank his heart to comprehend the Tao contained within it. Because of the Buddhist scriptures of the Ji Tian Jing channel and the stacking of his own wisdom and understanding in the young god world, Ji Tian's understanding has a feeling of transcendence and transcendence. Slowly, it seemed that Ji Tian was actually going to sort out a classic piece of reasoning from the diamond pestle. Just as Ji Tian was quietly comprehending the truth, suddenly he felt the earth shaking violently. The ancient atmosphere of the surrounding history seems to fade away, and the ancient temples suddenly become profound and vast. The golden walls and floors are as smooth as new. A large number of fragrant flowers began to fall from the sky, and the 8 directions were slowly converging towards the center with golden or colorful clouds. Countless heavenly melodies are played, and a large amount of fragrance gathers. With a gentle smell, the soul feels washed away by clean water. And the stone Buddha on the ancient temple suddenly transformed into a Buddha with a golden body of 6 zhang, constantly preaching the classics. A clear voice rang in his ears, and when Ji Tian was about to listen, the sound drifted far away. At the dawn of Ji Tianming, he immediately settled in his heart and realized the principles he preached in an extremely stable state. Quickly, the Buddha's voice grew louder and more magnificent, like the sound of clouds and thunder exploding, like the roar of a lion, awe-inspiring the soul. The Buddhist scriptures contain a large amount of scriptures, but they are easily absorbed by Ji Tian. With wisdom, one continuously analyzes the principles contained within without any obstacles, and easily becomes one's own thing. Even the cycle of reincarnation in his mind turned around, and his intelligence slowly rose. Ji Tian could even draw inferences from the same situation. Upon hearing many truths, and even reinterpreting many Buddhist scriptures that Ji Tian had learned on earth from a new perspective, a large number of unheard-of scriptures were quickly absorbed by Ji Tian. After gaining so many truths, Ji Tian was very happy. Whether practicing in this world or in the world of Yang God, one can receive great help. After finishing the Prajnaparamita Sutra, we began to talk about the scriptures of the Great Nirvana, which is the ultimate nirvana. At the same time as preaching the nirvana scriptures, the Buddha on the lotus throne, with his majestic and precious appearance, emerged from the swastika character on his chest and continuously burned the Buddha's golden body. The body ignited, burning from the skin to the flesh, from the flesh to the bones, and the parietal bone of the Buddha began to emit light. However, wherever the light shone, all the red flowers on the other side grew, and in the end, the surrounding area was a sea of flowers on the other side, incredibly brilliant. After the Buddha spoke the last word of the nirvana scripture, Ji Tian opened his eyes, and all the light disappeared. The outside was still a dim reddish-brown world. But an ancient temple, an ancient tree, a stone Buddha, awakened in a dream, suddenly. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Immortal Tao Heart. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Immortal Tao Heart. Ji Tian turned his head and everything remained the same as before. Then he looked around at the people who were still admiring the power of the gods, searching for their treasures. Ji Tian walked outside the ancient temple and looked at the 5 leaves on the Bodhi tree, gently picking them all off. Observing the patterns of the Bodhi leaves in my hand carefully, there is a strange Taoist rhyme emanating from them. The veins of the leaves are golden, and the traffic is interconnected, resembling scriptures written by ancient Buddhas. Put the leaves in your pocket and then prepare to leave Bodhi immortal medicine. In the 9 heavens and 10 earths, all the elixirs of immortality are transformed by the Taoist fruit of the ancient immortal king. Is the Bodhi elixir of immortality also transformed by an immortal king? The Bodhi tree inspires human divinity, enhances human understanding and wisdom, and has almost no use for Ji Tian. For Ji Tian, what is truly useful is the truth contained within the Bodhi tree. In the entire 9 heavens and 10 earths, it can be said that the opportunity to become immortal exists within the elixir of immortality. There were no more Buddhist artifacts in the ancient temple, and everyone left with some disappointment. Then Pang Bo woke up and directly took off the plaque of the Lei Yin Temple. A Buddhist horn sounded, and after a burst of vibration, the ancient temple was reduced to ashes. Ji Tian felt the vibration of the earth, and a great storm on Mars came. Arriving at the altar, Ji Tian looked at the farce in front of him, feeling nothing but human stupidity. In the process of running, the attack of the monster crocodile caused everyone's hearts to panic since the first person died. Although Ji Tian had no connection with this group of people and didn't know each other, he still relied on his diamond pestle to save and protect some people. Along the way, he calmly observed the surroundings, fast but not urgent, and protected a group of people back to the altar. After all, Ji Tian still doesn't like to watch his compatriots die. If you are able to help others within your own capabilities, simply lend a helping hand. Then Ji Tian stood in the middle of the crowd, surrounded by a group of people thankfully approaching Ji Tian, which could be considered as integration into this collective. Because Ji Tian sensed a bit of malice, but others did not act first, Ji Tian didn't want to kill him directly. He just didn't stand under the dangerous wall, stood in the middle of everyone, and kept away from the dangerous barrier. Perhaps Lu Yunji and his team were preparing to target themselves first, but Ji Tian was not in a dangerous place and it was not easy to let go, but Yi Fan was not so lucky. Watching this farce, Ji Tian felt very impatient with Lu Yunji and his group, and now began to calculate in his heart. After a series of thrilling operations, the copper coffin finally set off, and Ji Tian leaned against the wall to close his eyes and cultivate his spirit. Inside the pitch-black copper coffin, there were people full of sadness and fear, while at this moment, Ji Tian's mind was constantly flickering with the scriptures obtained by the Lei Yin Temple. I started to study continuously, but there were no mystical practices inside, just scriptures that explained the principles. Is the scene of Buddha's transmission of Dharma followed by nirvana the means of Shakyamuni? Are you trying to extradite me? Ji Tian pondered quietly. To be honest, Ji Tian did not reject the practice of Buddhism, but the practice of Buddhism in the western desert of this world was a bit overwhelming because the Dharma of Amitabha Buddha was a bit excessive. Ji Tian continued to ponder and read through the scriptures in his mind, contemplating the cycle of reincarnation. At this point, Ji Tian already understood what level of treasure the cycle of reincarnation was, so he didn't have to worry about being transformed. The so-called Buddha Dharma essentially explains the composition of this world using Buddha's knowledge and viewpoints, just like science uses particles to explain the world. Buddhists believe that the composition of this world is thought, and that this world has the ancient star of Amitabha, which can be considered as a methodology for understanding the world through Buddha's civilization. Of course, Buddhism also emphasizes objectivity, and even the concept of objectivity in Earth civilization is still passed down in Buddhism. The so-called guest means unable to stay. The so-called view refers to I see and know to see. So the original meaning of objectivity is I can't help but see. Because a person is fixated on their own ideas, they will not be able to view things objectively. Only by not fixating on their own knowledge can they approach problems with an objective and developmental perspective. Even the Buddha's ultimate nirvana is saying that Buddhism is also a form of knowledge, and to a certain extent, Buddhism should also be extinguished and abandoned, so that this person can see the true appearance of the universe. Just like scientists constantly constructing and studying the laws of the universe, repeatedly overturning the conclusions of predecessors. In Ji Tian's eyes, these Buddhist teachings were just a set of methodologies for exploring the rules of heaven and earth, and he began to slowly learn the essence of their ideas. The soul is like the surface of the sea, and scriptures and knowledge are like the subtle waves of the sea. If I could learn and study the principles of the universe thoroughly, then the human immortal martial arts and ghost immortal arts of the young god world could be replicated in this world. Unfortunately, there is a creative catastrophe in this world. In the world of the young god, one should be able to quickly attain enlightenment and become a sage by using the knowledge of this world to comprehend the truth. However, unfortunately, the vast world is ignorant and unbearable, and there are noble families of saints and those like Dream Divine Machine. As long as someone reaches a high level of cultivation, these sage families and cultivators will instantly come to kill, capture, and refine their divine souls, serving as stepping stones on their path of cultivation. Therefore, it is quite difficult for themselves in the world of the young god. Unless the self of the young god world can overcome the 9 thunderstorms in one leap, it will be more stable. Ji Tian thinks that different worlds have their own troubles. Thinking of this, Ji Tian smiled and then fell into a state of meditation, not only cultivating his physical strength, but also cultivating his soul and understanding the truth. In the cover of the sky, the realm of the mind is not important either. Most of the states of mind are an invincible fighting spirit, where victory is victory, and defeat is basically a breakdown of the heart. However, the fate of this world is not limited to fighting. Many ancient emperors experienced a rapid collapse of their invincible Tao spirit after becoming emperors, including the departure of their ancestors, the extinction of their lineage, life and death tests, and so on. There were too many terrifying tests, and when these tests came, the ancient emperors could not resist them at all. Even if they were great emperors, facing time and the rolling of the world, they were still insignificant, too insignificant. Then they all cut toward Sendai in self-destruct, transforming into the supreme forbidden zone. Ji Tian has already summarized the 5 directions of cultivation. Dao Zai, Dao Xin, Yuan Shen, Mana, and Body Destiny. If one can prove the great emperor in 5 aspects, then they will ascend to the throne and become the emperor. But Ji Tian continued to ponder on how to become an immortal in 5 aspects. Firstly, the Tao must be transformed into an immortal Tao, and the primordial spirit, magical power, and physical life must also be elevated into an immortal primordial spirit, immortal magical power, and immortal body, which can be called immortality. But should the Tao heart also be sublimated into an immortal Tao heart that will never be erased, not for external objects, not for life and death, but for the true Tao. When countless disasters arise, they will inevitably move forward for their own reasons without regret, even if they enter the great terror of life and death, they will persist in their own path, never retreat, never regret, and remain steadfast. The ancient Supreme was the one who first shattered his Tao heart, then cut himself with a sword and transformed into the Forbidden Zone Supreme. If there is no way to become an immortal in this dilapidated place of 9 heavens and 10 earths, it's okay. If you can't even remain steadfast in your own Tao heart and transform into an immortal Tao heart, then what qualifications do you have to become an immortal? Now is no longer the era of the primitive ancient world. In that era, immortality could be transformed into immortality without the need for an immortal Tao heart. In the 9 days and 10 places of this ultimate law, Ji Tian discovered that the only real opportunity to become immortal was to possess an absolutely immortal Tao heart. It's easy to say, but it's extremely difficult to do. Even the ancient emperor, who has the courage to embrace the universe, still finds it difficult to choose between life and death. But those who achieve immortality in the mortal world must have an immortal Tao heart in order to overcome numerous life and death tribulations and rebirth from nirvana. So Ji Tian began to organize his own path, knowing that it was extremely difficult to become an immortal. Dao Zhe, Dao Xin, Yuan Shen, mana, and body life all had to be transformed into immortal levels. How difficult it was. But there is still direction, with the seeds of theory and thought, just go step by step and push forward. Just as Ji Tian was about to settle down, suddenly he felt a chill and couldn't help but shiver. Then he opened his eyes, and inside the pitch-black coffin, Ji Tian had no curiosity and didn't want to know what had happened. And at this moment, all the tired people also finished sleeping and resting, slowly standing up to gather together. They have cried and quarreled before, but it's meaningless. What kind of place are we going to reach? Perhaps it is the homeland of the gods, perhaps it is something else. They were speculating that God simply did not exist, speculating on the roots of ancient myths. They kept thinking and speaking, and the atmosphere of solemnity and fear continued to dissipate. Upon hearing these speculations, Ji Tian could only be said to be a group of young people. The more they knew, the more they understood the terror hidden in this universe. Of course, these horrors were too far away from Ji Tian, and he didn't care anymore. Please collect and recommend. End of this chapter. 10, Chapter 10 Roads. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10 Roads, Bright. I see the light. It's a familiar world of light. A group of people burst into tears in excitement and ran out of the bronze coffin. The death that appeared in the bronze coffin still made everyone fearful. Ji Tian tightly grasped the diamond pestle in his hand, guarding his side. Everyone walked out and saw the magnificent world. Standing on the mountaintop, they could feel the peace here. Compared to the dead Mars, this is undoubtedly a land of vitality. At this moment, the bronze coffin slowly slid down and fell into the abyss behind the mountain, leaving everyone in awe. Did you notice that there is no 5-color altar here? We seem to have fallen directly from the sky here, rather than appearing from within the starry sky gate, Yi Fan said keenly. Upon hearing these words, Ji Tian rolled his eyes inwardly. Originally, the star map on the bronze coffin was flying towards the legendary purple microstar, and then took a detour and flew directly towards the ancient forbidden area. What a beautiful world! Ji Tian couldn't help but feel emotional. Ji Tian's residual cycle of hope energy can see the flourishing vitality flowing between heaven and earth. A few scattered soul particles have high mass, and living here for a long time can enhance their vitality. The air in Beidou is fragrant and sweet, which is a true truth, because living here can extend one's lifespan. There is half a stone tablet there. Everyone came forward to examine and quickly came up with the 3 ancient characters, forbidden in the past. After speculating on the name of the ancient forbidden area, I finally came back to my senses and found that there were problems with my location everywhere. Continuing to see the strange scene of Jinping catching a giant elephant, Ji Tian couldn't help but marvel at the wonder. It was only in his 2 lifetimes that he had seen such a strange creature for the first time. Young God World, if you don't know the plot, most people would think it's an ordinary ancient world. Gulu. I don't know whose stomach rang, but everyone realized it had been a long time since they had eaten. We still need to solve the problem of eating, or let's find out if we have anything to eat, Ji Tian suggested. As Ji Tian has also saved a few lives, after a journey of life and death, he can also be considered as sharing joys and sorrows, and has become familiar with each other. Okay. Yi Fan nodded and Pang Bo spoke up. Brother, I don't think you're a bad person. Don't worry, with my Pang Bo stuttering, I definitely can't do without you. After speaking, Pang Bo patted his chest with his hand, making a loud bang. Brother Pang, with just one word from you, your brother and I will definitely help you develop. Ji Tian responded jokingly, I promise to make you the ruler of the gods, the emperor of immortals. Ha, Yi Fan, your friend is quite interesting, just as handsome as me, Pang Bo. Pang Bo laughed heartily and said, if I become prosperous, I will make you the king of heaven, the holy emperor of the great way. Yi, I want you to become the heavenly emperor. Pang Bo boasted loudly. As soon as Yi Fan said this sentence, he felt a bit speechless, feeling that both of them were so childish, but he just smiled. Pang Bo, do you still read online novels abroad? After speaking, the 3 formed a team, exchanged ideas, and began to explore their surroundings. Look, there's a pond over there. Pang Bo shouted loudly. The 3 of them walked over and saw the fruit of the ancient tree and the spring water below. Picking the fruit, the rich aroma of the fruit seduced the craving insects in his stomach. Ji Tian could sense that every inch of his flesh and blood was eagerly yearning for this fruit. The 3 of them were extremely hungry, so they picked the fruit and began to nibble on it. It's really fragrant. I've never seen such a rich and fragrant fruit before. Isn't it toxic? Mind him. You're right too. Step forward and start eating directly. This fruit is an absolute treasure and of course, it is not poisonous. Ji Tian nibbled on the fruit, feeling the vitality of his body growing and becoming pure, drinking spring water while eating the fruit. Eating it all over, Ji Tian relaxed his mind on one side. Although Ji Tian never said anything, he still felt nervous inside the bronze coffin. It seems that I am still an ordinary person, and my spiritual cultivation is not yet at home. Ji Tian couldn't help but laugh at himself in his heart. A few people eating fruits and spring water all feel energetic and have endless strength all over their bodies. Then a few people brought water and fruits to prepare to go back. Due to the issue of fruit distribution, conflicts have arisen. You are really stingy. If it's too big, you won't eat. Ji Tian was also sprayed by this group of people, looking at them with pity in his heart, but he didn't say anything and ate all the remaining fruits with Yi Fan and Penghua. Because Ji Tian originally wanted to share it with them, but they lacked wisdom, luck, so if they missed the opportunity, it would be fine. When facing people with insufficient wisdom and merit, giving them good things not only fails to receive gratitude, but also leads to malice. The only one who listened to advice, Wuyi, still ate half of the fruit and asked her to eat a little more. She couldn't help but feel embarrassed. While eating and calming down, Ji Tian pondered and gained insights. Although he did not obtain any cultivation scriptures, he was constantly striving to cultivate his Tao mind. Every moment is an opportunity for cultivation, and one should not slack off at all. This is Ji Tian's idea and he is also prepared to do so. Whether it is replacing the heavenly heart with one's own heart or immortalizing the Tao heart, they all come from the constant effort and practice of the Tao. A large amount of truth is like a mirror reflecting on the spiritual fog of the season. By utilizing the teachings of Confucianism, Buddhism, Taoism, and various philosophical methods of cultivating one's mind, we can gradually decipher and dissect Ji Tian's own personality, wisdom, emotions, and thoughts, in order to enable him to fully control his own thinking. Only by mastering one's own thinking can one elevate one's wisdom. Analyzing one's own soul and completely dissecting one's mind and body is an extremely terrifying and cruel thing. Only truly brave people can achieve things that ordinary people cannot reach, truly face themselves, and truly change their destiny. I am prepared to attain the supreme wisdom in preaching, willing to use my own wisdom to prove all truths, and that must be the ultimate joy. After Ji Tian and the others had finished distributing, Lu Yunji took out his private chocolate and separated it, trying to win over the crowd and divide Ji Tian and the others. To put it bluntly, in the wilderness, excluding a person from a human group is bound to carry great malice. Ji Tian looked at a group of people thanking Lu Yunji, and Lu Yunji looked contemptuously at Yifanji Tian and the others. Seeing this scene, Ji Tian once again exclaimed that human stupidity and evil have no limits. But this kind of petty person, Ji Tian, doesn't care at all, but is pondering his own path. In addition to the secret realm method, there is also the Dark Lord who opens up the path of evolution of the Source technique. The Dark Lord is a Source Emperor who uses the Source technique to prove the Tao. There is also the technological evolution path of the Eternal Ancient Star, and Emperor Dao Yen used technology to prove the Tao. It can be said that any path can essentially demonstrate the realm of a sage, who essentially comprehends the principles of heaven and earth, and then proceeds according to the principles comprehended. When one reaches a point of understanding oneself as a saint, one can be called a great sage, followed by the quasi-emperor. The quasi-emperor realm begins to comprehend and analyze the laws of life and blood, completely elevating one's own life. It can be said that whether using the secret realm method, source magic method, or technological evolution method, they are essentially just a means, but these methods contain the understanding and principles of the creators. If one practices wisdom, spirit, and soul, it is also a way of becoming a saint, realizing and practicing the principles of the universe, and using the laws of the Tao to transform oneself into a quasi-emperor. Ji Tian's mind began to liven up and he began to think of the ghost immortal Tao technique in the Yang God world. Cultivate one's own wisdom and thoughts, ultimately reaching the level of sages in both mind and spirit, then comprehend the principles of the universe, and finally use the insights to transform one's life form. Use the Tao to elevate one's bloodline and life level, becoming a quasi-emperor. In the end, he used his own great way to evolve 10,000 paths, and his invincible wisdom to calculate 10,000 paths and replace the imprint of the heavenly heart, achieving the great emperor. Ji Tian was thinking in his heart, constantly calculating and conceptualizing such a design. Due to the fact that the root of power still comes from oneself, the mind and wisdom cannot be taken away by external things. Ji Tian may have limited knowledge, but he dared to think and began to ponder the intelligence he already had in his heart. The practice of the Luanhai secret realm is the life wheel of the human body. The practice of the Tao Palace secret realm is the 5 internal organs of the human body, the practice of the 4 extreme secret realm is the limbs of the human body, and the practice of the dragon transformation is the spine of the human body. The practice in Sendai is based on the brain, and it is also the beginning for cultivators to use their own wisdom to practice the path. The 6 heavens of Sendai continue until the completion of the great sage. It can be said that the 5 major secret realms have been fully cultivated at this time. The next quasi-emperor and even the emperor are essentially the unity of the 5 secret realms, which means that the whole person transforms into a small universe, a small world. But Ji Tian understood that above the 5 major secret realms, there was also the 6th secret realm created by the Emperor of Wilderness, which was to raise his head 3 feet and have a god. Essentially, the sixth secret realm is the spiritual soul of cultivation. So it is feasible to start with the evolution of the soul and spirit, cultivate wisdom, and enter the path of sages with wisdom and power. Moreover, every living creature has a soul and spirit. Coincidentally, Tian from the young God world is following the path of using spiritual and intellectual ideas to carry truth, which is similar to the sixth secret realm. It is precisely because of the various excellent conditions and opportunities that Tian believes that the path of using spiritual wisdom to preach is truly promising. Due to the fact that practicing the 5 major secret realms does not conflict with practicing spiritual wisdom, and practicing spirit and thoughts can actually help with the practice of the secret realm method, using the secret realm method has elevated me to the level of a sage, and I can also enhance my spiritual wisdom. Mutual cooperation is simply a perfect match. Even if the path is not successful, I can still help myself in the world of young God, making me a saint or even a young God. If the self of the young God world proves the great wisdom of the young God level, with 480 million ideas operating, as an external brain, it is not a loss-making thing at all. For various reasons, cultivating spiritual wisdom is simply the best business without any capital or profit. Whether one's path is successful or not, there will be huge gains. Thinking of Tian here, he had a clear understanding in his heart and his mind settled down. No matter what he did, cultivating his mind was ultimately the greatest fundamental opportunity. Seeking collection, seeking recommendation, and providing support. Some suggestions can be put forward, but it's a bit uncomfortable to be alone. End of this chapter.